welcome back to another Minute in the Clouds with Greg. Today I'm talking about TBI in children and shaken baby syndrome. The link between TBI and shaken baby syndrome. Shaken baby syndrome is one of the most distressing sources of traumatic brain injury in infants and young children. It's a severe form of child abuse, and it results from aggressively shaking an infant or toddler. And this is an act of violence and can lead to catastrophic things for the baby and the brain. So delving in a bit deeper between those links. First, if you enjoy these videos and articles, let me know in the comments what you'd like to see. Consider a like and some feedback, subscribing. Some common causes of TBI in children. Traumatic brain injury is an adverse neural event caused by an external force. Depending on the severity, the TBI can be categorized as mild, which is concussion, or severe in the case of a penetrating head injury, and such injuries can lead to lasting impact and on various domains in a child's well-being, physical, cognitive, and emotional. Some common causes of a traumatic brain injury in children: falls from beds, stairs or playground equipment, sports-related injuries, often from contact sports or activities without the proper protective gear, motor vehicle accidents, which might involve pedestrians, cyclists, or passengers, physical abuse and violence, a darker cause and often overlooked yet devastating, and accidents at home or school. But what is shaken baby syndrome? Shaken baby syndrome, or SBS, is sometimes referred to as abusive head trauma or inflicted traumatic brain injury, and it's a severe form of TBI that occurs when a caregiver violently shakes a baby, causing the baby's brain to jostle within the skull. This is due to a combination of factors, including the baby's head size, weight in relationship to their body, and still developing state of the baby's neck muscles. The forceful shaking causes the brain to collide against the skull, resulting in direct injuries, and it also stretches and tears neural fibers, causing secondary or indirect injuries. And these injuries can combine and cause some significant neural damage. The consequences of shaken baby syndrome: babies subjected to that can display multiple symptoms: seizures or unusual eye movements, developmental delays in speech, motor skills, cognitive functions, cognitive impairments affecting memory, learning, and concentration, long-term disabilities from motor dysfunction to vision problems. And sadly, the aftermath can also lead to death in severe cases. The prognosis varies depending on the intensity of the shaking and the child's age and time of medical intervention. Some prevention and awareness, that's at the forefront of the battle against shaken baby syndrome. A twofold strategy involves raising awareness about the repercussions of shaken baby syndrome and equipping caregivers for coping mechanisms for stress. Outreach initiatives, helplines, community programs, parental training sessions, those are all things that can provide instrumental help and definitely be instrumental in this. Some thoughts: shaken baby syndrome, although caused by various factors, presents a particularly distressing aspect. Despite the alarming consequences of shaken baby syndrome, there is great potential for prevention by collaborating with healthcare professionals, communities, and educational institutes. People can work together to create a future where that's eliminated. And then I'll go on. I'm kind of jumping backwards and forwards here. I hope you forgive that. Support and resources. A crucial aspect for combating shaken baby syndrome is establishing and recognizing strong support systems. Parents and caregivers frequently face a range of challenges such as financial constraints, workplace stress, and managing children's health conditions or developmental issues. And when overwhelmed, there is an increased risk of inadvertently lashing out. And so communities need to create an environment where seeking help is not stigmatized. And support can take various forms, and that could be parental support groups, creating a safe space where parents can share experiences, vent and share their frustrations, seek advice. Respite care, temporary care provision services that offer parents a much needed break, ensuring that the child remains in a safe environment. Helplines, dedicated lines that offer counselling services and resources or immediate assistance to distressed caregivers, and educational workshops ensuring engaging sessions are given, training caregivers on child developmental milestones, temper tantrums, and effective calming techniques. Long-term and rehabilitation, long-term care. For children who have unfortunately been subjected to traumatic brain injuries or shaken baby syndrome, rehabilitation becomes paramount. These rehabilitation programs are tailored based on the child's specific needs and the extent of the injury. Components of rehabilitation might encompass physical therapy to improve motor functions, balance and coordination, occupational therapy that can assist in relearning tasks like getting dressed, eating, attending school, speech language therapy, addressing issues related to speech, language and swallowing. Neuropsychosocial therapy helps with cognitive impairments, memory issues and behavioral modifications. And the ultimate object would be to maximize the child's independence and quality and support their quality of life. Support from peer groups, family members and educators becomes indispensable during this phase. There is a legal framework for reporting because of severity. And shaken baby syndrome as a form of child abuse, it's regulated by legal frameworks in many jurisdictions. And it's critical for healthcare professionals, educators, and even neighbours to be vigilant and report any suspected cases of abuse. Confidential reporting systems and legal protections for whistleblowers can encourage more people to come forward to potentially prevent harm being done. Some thoughts: the link between traumatic brain injury in children and shaken baby syndrome, while deeply unsettling, also highlights the significance of the comprehensive, preventative, rehabilitative and legal measures. By promoting an environment of awareness, support and vigilance, we can greatly reduce the incidence of these tragedies. And I'll put some good links on the website and the articles on this stuff as well. There's post-rehabilitation challenges and integration. The immediate aftermath of shaken baby syndrome involves medical care and therapy for the long-term effects can extend into schooling, social integration, and familial adjustments within the family, education adjustments. Children who've suffered from traumatic brain injury or shaken baby syndrome might face cognitive, physical or emotional difficulties that affect their learning capabilities. Schools and educators should be equipped to offer specialized support, individual education plans, IEPs, tailored curriculums designed to accommodate a child's unique needs, ensuring that they're not left behind, no child left behind academically. Inclusion within the class, where feasible, integrating children into standard classrooms, but with additional support can aid social development and reduce feelings of isolation. It used to be where they would put people in a separate class, isolate them, and it would just compounded the problem of social isolation. Speaking of social isolation, social and emotional impact. Trauma isn't, just physical. Survivors of TBI or shaken baby syndrome might grapple with self-esteem issues stemming from perceived differences from their peers, emotional outbursts potentially as a result of the injury, but also from frustration or feelings of inadequacy. There's social challenges, difficulties in making friends due to cognitive, speech, or physical differences. Engaging counselors or child psychologists can be invaluable in those scenarios, offering coping mechanisms and strategies for both the child and families. And then you've the family dynamics. TBI and shaken baby syndrome affects the entire family. Parents might wrestle with guilt, anger, sorrow. Siblings might feel neglected or burdened. It's essential that families seek family counselling where applicable. That can provide a space for each member of the family to voice concerns and learn coping strategies. Support networks are important. Joining a community, groups online, forums where families with similar experience can share their insights, and that can be therapeutic and enlightening. And then there's awareness and advocacy. Combating this and aiding survivors requires collective effort, and advocacy initiatives could include increasing awareness through media campaigns, highlighting the perils of shaking infants, influencing policy, lobbying for legislation that mandates on parental training, especially for high-risk groups or first-time parents. That could be become very political, but it shouldn't be. I've always thought you need a license to own a dog, but anyone can have a child. But I'm not going to don't want to open that as a debate. It's just an observation. Traumatic brain injury in children, particularly shaken baby syndrome, presents a heartbreaking intersection of health, education, law, and society. And addressing the aftermath requires an integrated approach spanning immediate medical care to long-term social support and awareness. And the stakes are high, and costs measured in young lives, and their potential is profound. Only through understanding, education, and collective responsibility can we hope to safeguard the most vulnerable. And then there's legal implications and child protection. One can't discuss shaken baby syndrome without touching on the legal implications and the roles of child protectors, protection agencies, and legal consequences for perpetrators. Shaken baby syndrome, being a deliberate act of violence, carries severe legal consequences, criminal charges. People found guilty of causing shaken baby syndrome could face charges ranging from assault to first-degree murder, depending on how severe and the severity of the child's injuries and the intent of the act. The civil liberties, apart from criminal consequences, perpetrators might also face civil lawsuits for damages related to medical expenses, pain, suffering, wrongful death, loss of parental rights. People might have the parental rights terminated if they're deemed to be a continued threat to the child's well-being, if they were the ones that caused the harm or endangered the situation. I know it might seem like I'm going off course a bit, but shaken baby syndrome, is a form of traumatic brain injury and a heartbreaking one. And the role of Child Protective Services is part of the equation. They play a crucial role in the aftermath of any suspected cases. Investigation, Child Protection Services hopefully promptly investigates reports of potential abuse and determines the safety of the home and the environment, and if deemed necessary, removal, foster care being a possibility. If the home's deemed unsafe, the child might temporarily be put into some kind of protection temporarily. Rehabilitation and support's also an important aspect, and they can offer services like counselling and parenting classes. Mandatory reporting comes into play. Most jurisdictions have laws that require professionals such as a doctor, a teacher, a social worker to report suspected child abuse to the appropriate authorities, and the goal is early detection and intervention, which is paramount in preventing future harm. The community plays a role in this. Whilst legal entities and child protection agencies are at the forefront of the battle, the community's got a role to play as well. Vigilance and neighbours, friends, relatives, they should alert, should be alert for potential signs of child abuse and take necessary actions, which could be as simple as offering a stressed parent some respite, or, in serious situations to, do some reporting. Support communities create safe spaces and programs for stressed parents, offering them resources and tools to cope. So while the immediate aftermath of shaken baby syndrome and other traumatic brain injuries is undeniably medical, the broader societal implications are vast. A holistic approach, embracing medicine, education, law, psychology, and community becomes imperative, and awareness combined with intervention and a robust framework can hopefully pave the way for a safer environment for children. Long-term rehabilitation for survivors, given the profound implications on a child's life, comprehensive care and management are indispensable, and a closer look at the rehabilitation process and long-term care for survivors. The initial medical management, once there's a suspected case of that, the child would be admitted to hospital, and a multidisciplinary approach employed, neurological monitoring involving continually assessing the child's neurological status, given the risks of brain damage, neurological interventions, deepening, depending on the severity of the injury. Surgeries might be required to relieve pressure on the brain or address brain hemorrhages. Ophthalmological evaluation, retinal hemorrhages are characteristics and features of shaken baby syndrome. An evaluation from an ophthalmology standpoint helps in diagnosing and managing things that are related to vision. Post-acute phase rehabilitation begins with including things like physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, neuropsychosocial therapy for cognitive, behavioral, and emotional changes. Children who survive shaken baby syndrome face long-lasting repercussions. Physical challenges might include seizures, vision, hearing impairments, and cerebral palsy even. Cognitive deficits could encompass learning disabilities, attention deficit disorder, memory issues, emotional and behavioral problems, mood disorders, aggressive behavior, or other psychiatric conditions might surface. For caregivers or parents coping with a child who suffered from this, it can be emotionally taxing. So it's essential to have support groups connecting families with other families who've been through similar experiences and can be help to one another. Regular medical checkups is important. Some periodic evaluations to ensure that any new or evolving challenges are potentially promptly addressed, and educational support. Looking on the horizon, though the journey is undoubtedly arduous for survivors of shaken baby syndrome and the families, is hope. With the right support system and the therapies and interventions in place, many children will lead fulfilling lives, providing the resilience of the human spirit. And then the legal and societal implications, once again. Criminal charges, the person responsible for the injuries can face criminal charges ranging from, child endangerment, assault, right up to murder. Child Protective Services involvement, they can help where there's suspicions. Public awareness due to the severity and the prevalence of Shaken-Bimby syndrome is often important. And there can be stigma. Families affected by this, especially when it's publicized, can face a lot of stigma. They might experience isolation, blame, judgment from the community, and there's an economic burden that goes with this as well. Long-term care and rehabilitation for a child affected by Shaken-Bimby syndrome can be costly and puts a strain not only on the families but on a healthcare system. Shaken-Bimby syndrome is not just a medical issue; it's deeply intertwined with the legal system, society at large as well, and it underscores paramount importance of educating caregivers, providing resources and offering support. Collective approach is necessary. And quick recap, abusive head trauma caused by physical child abuse involves shaking a baby's head or neck, leading to brain damage or death, and it primarily affects infants and toddlers under 2 years old, and it's due to caregivers' frustration, tiredness, anger. Special needs children are at a higher risk, and the trauma often results from, as I said, caregiver frustration, particularly if there's a crying baby that doesn't, stop crying, or an unmet expectations. Infants and toddlers under 2 are the most vulnerable, although it can rarely occur in children up to 5 years old. Special needs children are more at risk. Actions such as gentle bouncing or being in a bumpy car do not cause abusive head trauma. Abusive head trauma occurs when force is used to shake, throw, or hit a child's head or neck against an object. Shaking a baby is harmful. And there's some useful websites: kidshealth.org, National Center on Shaken-Bimby Syndrome, Child Welfare Information Gateway. I'm going to put all these links in the article, along with some information of how you can report any suspected child abuse or neglect, and some other help and advice. So bottom line, if you think someone's in danger, call 911. If you or someone that is in mental crisis, you can contact the Suicide Crisis Lifeline at 988, or Mental Health First Aid, even if you just need someone to talk to. Today's content, I hope you enjoyed it, even though it was a horrible subject. If you're new here, I'm glad you stopped by. It's not easy creating when you've got health problems. What am I thankful for today? Today, I'm thankful and grateful for being able to create these videos and articles. They help me relearn many things. My traumatic brain injury and ADHD greatly impacts my memory, and it causes me to forget things a lot. And having the opportunity to make these videos and write articles helps me relearn. And in the process of relearning, I become more compassionate towards myself. And I also find it easier to forgive myself for not remembering things or struggling with challenges that I've come to realize are very common with ADHD and traumatic brain injury, as well as PTSD and things like that. What are you grateful for today? Let me know in the comments what you're grateful for today, along with any content or topics that you would like to see me discuss or talk about. As always, thank you for watching. I love you all. I hope you enjoyed it today. And as always, take care of your mind. Bye-bye for now.